All right, people. Midweek report time. So, let's start. Let us start with the preview. We're doing a preview of Derek Chisora versus Joe-Joyce. I've obviously given my prediction video on this fight. I've already given my pick. I'm going with Joe-Joyce. By late stoppage, I think that Joe-Joyce, even though, look, you're only as good as your last performance, and neither man had a particularly stellar performance last time out. But Joe-Joyce against Cash Ali, I think looked a little bit better than Chisora did against Gerald Washington. And again, I think if this was Chisora who fought Artur Szpilka 5 years ago, and that wasn't a peak Chisora, he'd have had no trouble with Gerald Washington. He had plenty of trouble last year. It's not going to get any better a year later. So Joe-Joyce to win that. Dennis McCann versus Belute. Honestly, that fight first time around was absolutely flipping brilliant. It was on a Friday night in the York Hall. It was a draw, a technical draw. I think it was a head clash that stopped the fight in the 9th round, I think it was. Some people feel Belute did enough to win that fight. Well, I believe this is going to be over 12 rounds. I think the first fight might have been over 12 as well. It could have been a 10-rounder. But this, believe me, this is going to be a good fight. McCann and Belute, that's got cracker written all over it. Ryan Garner versus Archie Sharp, battle of the undefeated. What would you even call them? Would you call Archie Sharp still a prospect at 25-0? Listen, I'm going with Ryan Garner to win that fight by stoppage. Because Archie Sharp looked... You know what, right? Archie Sharp, he beat Leon Woodstock. And there was a time in Queensbury Stable, would have been actually about 2018 when the fight happened, when you had Zelfa Barrett, because he was originally a Queensbury fighter, you had Zelfa Barrett, you had Leon Woodstock, and you had Archie Sharp. And it was kind of how it was viewed at the time. This was before Zelfa Barrett lost to Ronnie Clark. I think it was Ronnie Clark who beat him first. It was kind of like Barrett, and then it was kind of Woodstock and Sharp were kind of like that. Barrett lost to Ronnie Clark. I remember that fight well. He was dropped in that fight, if memory serves me correct. Pretty sure he was, actually. Lost it on points. And then Woodstock and Sharp fought, and then they kind of tried to push Sharp as kind of, some really kind of, amazing contender. He's a big puncher and this, that, and the other. I remember the fight he had 5 years ago nearly with Declan Geraghty. I believe that was his last stoppage win, and he was actually getting outboxed in that fight. Now, Declan Geraghty has always been a respectable boxer, but very poor defense and an equally poor chin. All right, and he knocked Declan Geraghty out cold in that fight. He didn't look good in that fight. That was 5 years ago. He had a fight there back, I think it was in May, and he was dropped quite heavily in the first round against a journeyman. He 14 losses, down twice, scraped the decision. Lucky he got actually the journeyman down, Acre down in round number 3. Otherwise, God only knows how that could have been. I can't see him getting past Ryan Garner. I can't see it. I really can't. Also on the undercard, you've got Raven Chapman in there as well. Shout out to Raven Chapman every single time. Looking to make it 9-0 for the WBC International Featherweight title. Raven's been mentioning Sky Nicholson, and those two have had backs. I don't say back and forth, but there's a rivalry there between Chapman and Nicholson. Now, I have seen Raven Chapman fight a couple of times. Seen a few of her fights, and from what I can gather, well, because I've never watched Sky Nicholson fight, but I've been told she's not the easiest on the eye to watch fighting. In a sense of her fights, they don't tend to be the most entertaining. Now, Chapman only has, I believe, 2 stoppages on her record, but when you see her fight, she definitely seems to be a lot more, in your face, looking for the jugular, which I like to see. You don't see a lot of knockouts in female boxing, but I like to see a female who was there to be aggressive and to look to take chances. Chapman seems to be that. Now, her against Nicholson, it's a Matchroom versus Queensbury show, right? It's an interesting fight. Nicholson is WBC champion at featherweight. Chapman is she mandatory? She's been talking, like some people have said she is, and it's a bit all over the place, but she'll be on the undercard, so that's going to be an interesting watch. Moses Atelma versus Marius Vac. Apart from the main event, this is the fight I have a keen interest in. I want to see how Atelma does against Marius Vac. Marius Vac is a very tough, very durable heavyweight. He's in his 40s now, but he's got experience, and some of these fighters who have experience, they've been around for many years, they just know what to do in there. And it's going to be interesting to see Look, I don't even think he's coming into this fight to win. I think it's all on Atelma. But is he going to go in there? Is he going to be able to frustrate Atelma at all? Is Atelma going to show signs of frustration in there? Is he going to show signs of inexperience in there? Is he going to give Mariusz Wach maybe not the chance to win, but the chance to make him look ordinary? And listen, what I've learned, fighters who, when they're prospects, especially more so a heavyweight, if they go the distance over 10 rounds, you have people instantly questioning their punching power. I remember when Daniel Dubois went the distance with Kevin Johnson, and if you ever, I wouldn't recommend you watch that fight because it's not the most entertaining fight you'll ever see. Kevin Johnson is a very negative, at that point in his career, he was more than he was a journeyman really, and he knew how to survive, he knew how to get through the rounds, and that was really it. And you straight away had people questioning Dubois' punching power. I don't think Filip Hrgovic or Usyk or a lot of people would go around questioning Dubois' punching power, but he couldn't put a dent, really, and apologies if you hear something going up the road there, it's a tractor I think. He couldn't put a dent in Kevin Johnson. Kevin Johnson just didn't give him any chances, so I hope if this goes the distance, you won't have people saying, oh, he's good, but he can't punch. Well, Usyk's very good. Is he the biggest puncher at heavyweight? No. Most people will tell you that. And actually, speaking of Oleksandr Usyk, we got to speak about Oleksandr Usyk. Oleksandr Usyk has given several interviews, and I've seen a few of them today. I've seen one with BKM. I've seen one with Sky. He told BKM, Boxing King Media, this is how he rates his UK opponents. So, and this is very interesting. This is very, very interesting. I'm intrigued. I'm very intrigued by this. So, he said, we'll start from the bottom and work our way up. He said the hardest fight, Tyson Fury. It's very interesting. So, unlike Tyson Fury, who said it was an easy fight, he lost the fight because it was so easy. I mean, why did you fail that exam? It was too easy, teacher. That's why I failed it. Not buying it, huh? Yeah, I didn't think so. Yeah, he said that's the hardest fight. Okay. And you know what? It was a hard fight in there for Oleksandr Usyk. I wonder, does he mean it was the hardest fight? Maybe not in terms of physically, maybe just to get to Tyson Fury. Because I would say the Chisora fight was pretty hard for him as well. But I said Fury was the hardest fight. The easiest fight was Joe-Joyce. Now, in case some people are saying, what do you mean Joe-Joyce? Well, Oleksandr Usyk in the the WSB, is the World Series of Boxing. That is like a semi-professional amateur, what is it, a league? It's a semi-professional. You see a lot of Olympians before they go pro fight in the World Series of Boxing. I'm not sure the ounce gloves they use. I don't actually know the ounce gloves they use off the top of my head, but it's essentially 5 3-minute rounds, no head guard. It's as close to professional as you're going to get. And Oleksandr Usyk took part in that. Was it the Ukrainian Ottomans? Was that the name that they had? Because the fight is on YouTube. I watched it several times over the years. And Joe-Joyce is quite raw in that fight. I mean, he hadn't been boxing too long. This was in 2013. This was just before Usyk turned pro. I think it was 2013 anyway. It might have been early 2013. It was in the York Hall, actually. And anyway, long and the short of it, he gives Joe-Joyce a Hail Mary beating in there. I mean, if you've never seen it, he is hitting Joe-Joyce with left hand after left hand. Joyce isn't going anywhere, to his credit. He's taking them well. But he is hitting Joe-Joyce with everything but the kitchen sink in there. I mean, he hit him with left hand after left hand after left hand. Joyce, to his credit, he took them well. He took them very well. But yeah, when he says Joe-Joyce being the easiest, I mean, honestly, like Joe-Joyce, that was a much younger Joe-Joyce. I think Joe-Joyce would have been in his 20s at the time, would have been in his late 20s. Yeah, he took a beating in there against Oleksandr Usyk. I'm sure it's still on YouTube. I haven't watched it in a good few years, but go and have a look at it. Joe-Joyce versus Oleksandr Usyk. I'm sure the fight's still on YouTube. You can go and watch it. Best boxing IQ, Tyson Fury. Not too surprising there. Best footwork, Tony Bellew. Bellew always had decent footwork to his credit. He did. He said the best defense was Tyson Fury. Really? That again, I find that one a little bit strange because he nearly had Fury out of there. He hit Fury plenty in that fight. I would have thought, if I think about it, he hit Joshua definitely less than Fury. It's an interesting one. Maybe he means that, like, I'm struggling because that one I'm a bit kind of okay. The quickest, Tony Bellew. And that doesn't surprise me because Joshua, Fury, Joyce, Chisora, isn't anybody? Isn't anyone? I don't. Dubois. Sorry, I am. Yeah, Bellew was the lightest cruiserweight. I'm not surprised he's the quickest. Yeah, and hardest puncher, Derek Chisora. And you've Troy Williamson here in the comments saying hardest puncher got to be Daniel Dubois, but he won't say that. Okay, Troy Williamson, have you been hit by either of them? I haven't, thank God. I don't want to get hit by either of them. He has, Oleksandr Usyk, in a professional sense, in a professional environment. He says Derek Chisora, Dave Allen, and I gotta say, I've been watching some of Dave Allen's videos. Dave Allen as a fighter is kind of a, as a fighter, he's a bit of a Marmite character. It's probably been a nice way of putting it. But his YouTube channel his YouTube channel is very good. And the way he talks about things, and again, this is from a fighter's perspective. Oleksandr Usyk has shared 12 rounds with Derek Chisora, shared 9 and a bit rounds with Daniel Dubois, and in his opinion, Chisora is the hardest puncher. It's interesting, and that's exactly what Dave Allen said, and watching Dave Allen's one was interesting. He said that because he had Tony Yoka rated highly, and I remember years ago, he used to give interviews and he used to say about Tony Yoka's punching power. At the time, you can raise a few eyebrows as to why that punching power was what it was, because after 2020, he never had that punching power again. He said that Yoka, imagine just being hit with like small rocks. I think that's the word he used, small rocks constantly. They hurt. And that's what he said Yoka's was like. But he said Chisora's was on a different level. And he had Yoka rated quite highly as well in terms of punching power. So that's a very interesting list that Oleksandr Usyk has compiled there. It's a really interesting list. He's also said, Oleksandr Usyk, that he has no plans to retire from boxing anytime soon, despite his mother asking him to after the Tyson Fury win. He says, I'm going to continue boxing because I love boxing. It's my life. Mama, I love you. He has said something similar in the past. I remember in the run-up to was it the run or just after? I think it was in the run-up to the Fury fight. He talked about going on for another couple of years. Now, I don't know. Maybe that's just Oleksandr Usyk saying it for the sake of saying it. I'm kind of the belief that he probably does have one foot out the door. He probably does. If he stays around, let's say he beats Fury again and he looks to fight Joshua. He looks to fight maybe a rematch with Dubois. He looks to fight Martin Bakole, Frank Sanchez, Ajay Kabayel. If he tries to go on a run like that, he will lose. He will lose because he is slowing down. You could see it in the Fury fight. Even though he won and he was the better of the two, he'd slow down as well. Oleksandr Usyk, who fought Anthony Joshua in September 2021, we don't have that Usyk. I'm not going to say he's a million miles away from it, but he's not what he was then. He definitely isn't. It's certainly not in my opinion anyway. A separate... Wait, what's this? Oh, yeah, never mind. I was reading something that was like, a separate Riyadh season card will take place on the Terence Crawford public workout. Well, I've never seen that. That's an interesting one. Of the public workout, there'll be a separate card. Interesting. They pull out all the stops in Riyadh season. They really, really do. Now, I seen this yesterday on TalkSport, and I was a bit kind of... So, Ben Shalom has confirmed that Eubank versus Canelo won't be happening next. That's fine. Canelo's promotional team couldn't get a number Chris felt was acceptable for a fight of this size. I do believe the fight is going to happen, but not in September. Those are the words of Ben Shalom. So let me get this straight, right? Chris Eubank Jr. is pricing himself out of a Canelo fight, even though there's no other options. And when he comes back to the ring on a Sky show in September, October, it's going to be against John Doe, and he's not going to get even a fraction of what he would have been looking for against Canelo. There you go. Now, for Team Alvarez, at the end of the day, it's still a business. Eubank versus Canelo in the States is not going to generate as much money as Canelo versus Berlanga. It's just not going to do it. So Eubank Jr. has to think, right, well, I don't bring that much to the table. I don't even bring a title to the table. I don't bring anything to the table. So whatever I'm being offered is probably what I deserve, more than likely. It's like, it's like someone going in looking for work in a building site looking for work and saying, do you have any work? We do. What do you pay? I'll pay you what you work. I'm not working for that. That's essentially what he said there. You know, we'll pay you what you work. I'm not working for that. So where does he go? Like, you know, Eubank Jr. at this point. Where does he go? Conor Benn ain't going to happen. Billy Joe Saunders, God knows what's going on there with him. Where does it, like, I don't know. I don't know. Now, I did see Johnny Fisher will face Audrey Rudenko. That is the Audrey Rudenko, I am pretty sure. Unless I'm very much mistaken, I'll make sure it is Audrey Rudenko, who's been in there with the likes of numerous big punchers and is very seldom stopped. Just bear with me a sec, because I don't want to turn around, because I think he spells that name a little bit. No, it is the same Rudenko. 40-year-old Ukrainian. He's only been stopped twice in his career. Once against Jared Anderson, I remember that fight, and another against a prospect as well from Ukraine, Vladislav Sharenko. In fact, I think I might have got that name right, which is a rarity on here. Jeez, it's very rare. I think I might have actually got that name right without butchering it. I think. He's only been stopped twice, and that's in the last two fights. Before that, Zhilei Zhang couldn't stop him, Caballel couldn't stop him, Povetkin couldn't stop him, Hughie Fury couldn't stop him, Lucas Brown couldn't stop him. Very good chin Rudenko has. Now again, he is 40 years old, so you will see that punch resistance start to diminish a little bit, but he's wily. Ask him, how will Fisher handle that? Anyone looking and thinking he's going to do an Alan Babbage on him? No way. He will not do an Alan Babbage on him. I'd be amazed if he did. I can see him possibly stopping Rudenko, but I don't envision him doing a Babbage job on him. No way. Now, here's an interesting one here. Jaime Munguia has now reportedly signed a co-promotional deal with Top Rank and Bob Arum. Now, that is interesting, because I thought he was locked in a Golden Boy. I thought, to be honest with you, he was reasonably content with Golden Boy. I would have assumed, I would have thought. So that's a loss for Golden Boy, because although he lost to Canelo, and he lost soundly to Canelo back in May, at the end of the day, Munguia is still a name, and he's still a good name to have in your books, and he's a name you still want to build for the future. Yeah, he lost to Canelo, but he's still a very, very good fighter. He gave a good account of himself in that fight. So that's a big signing for Top Rank. Oh, and don't let anyone fool you. It's a big, big signing for Top Rank, and it's a bad thing for Golden Boy. And not only that, Yunto Nakatani has also signed the deal with Top Rank moving forward. So they're two big signings by Top Rank. In a week as well, when we're talking about Canelo, David Benavidez has decided that he will stay at 175 pounds, so he won't go down to super middleweight. Canelo can say he's dodged a bullet. He won't say that, but that's what I'm going to say. He's dodged a bullet. He doesn't have to fight Benavidez. That mandatory won't get called. He will now likely face Edgar Berlanga. And that is what that is. Look, Canelo Berlanga, I believe it's a mandatory defense. Now Benavidez has moved up. Obviously that's the fight I really wanted. I'm sure Benavidez must be thinking, you know what, they're not going to call that mandatory. They will at 175. It's a tougher challenge, and it is. The winner of Beterbiev Bivol is a tougher test, make no mistake about that. But, you know, maybe he's just thinking he won't get that shot. Canelo Berlanga is it's a good fight. Well, I say it's a good fight, not really, because I think Berlanga's going to take an absolute mother of a beating in there against Canelo, but it'd be a good showcase, maybe more so, of Canelo Alvarez and what he still has left in the tank against someone like Edgar Berlanga, because I think he is going to get an absolute mother of a beating in there against Canelo, a Hail Mary beating in there against Canelo. I really do. I can't see him winning that fight in the slightest. So yeah, I mean, there's other things to talk about as well. I mean, Oleksandr Usyk also gave an interview with Sky Sports, which I might actually do a separate video on the interview. Oh, and I must point out as well, IFL reported today, before we finish up, Tyson Fury, apparently his team going into the Oleksandr Usyk rematch is going to stay the same. So it's going to be Sugar Hill in the corner along with John Fury and Andy Lee. Shane Fury is going to stay there, but he will probably be part of the team. He just won't be in the corner. Look, I said it in the video and I'll say it again, I'll reiterate it. I don't necessarily mind that, but I would get rid of John Fury, or at the very least have him not involved in the corner. If you want to keep him as part of the team, part of the entourage, he can walk to the ring, he can bring the title, he can bring whatever, but don't have him in the corner. That vision of Fury, I think it was from round 10 going into round, it was one of the later rounds. And you just have Sugar Hill there, Andy Lee there, and John Fury there. It does not work. It just does not work. You need one voice in that corner. That should be Sugar Hill. I think Sugar Hill is an exceptional trainer. And I think he's a good fit for Tyson Fury. I really do. I genuinely think he's a very good fit. I've always said he's a good trainer. He fits Tyson Fury well. Ain't broke, don't fix it. But too many cooks do spoil the broth as well. That's just... And you don't need... If Andy Lee is going to be there to lend some support and to maybe give a little bit of, a little bit of his 2 cents, that's fine. But John Fury is going to be... If they're saying, if they're saying that the sky is blue and John Fury is saying it's actually purple, Fury is just like... Tyson is just like, what? So, yeah, I don't like that. I don't like the fact that he's keeping John Fury there. I think it needs to be... Listen, now, he could keep John Fury and Andy Lee there, and it could be he could turn around and say, Tyson could turn around and say, it's Sugar Hill's voice only. If that is how it is, happy days. But I don't think it will be. And I think that, look, at the end of the day, you could have Eddie Futch, Angelo Dundee, Customato, Manuel Stewart in the corner. It probably might not still be enough against Oleksandr Usyk. But having a corner that's in unison, that's singing from the same hymn sheet, won't do you any harm. But having a wild corner where one's saying this, one's saying that, one's saying that, one's saying that, one's saying that, it's not going to help you. It's certainly not my opinion anyway. So that's my thoughts on everything. I will try and get a video out for tomorrow. Certainly will. I hope yous are all keeping well. It's been a flippin' eventful week, to say the least on here. But we're near the end of it, and hopefully things will get better. I hope yous all enjoyed the video. Smash the like button if you could. Subscribe, of course, you haven't already. Peace.